Ambassador Marlowe Hayes stood at the airlock of the human shuttle Aurora Dawn, taking a slow breath to calm his racing heart. For months he had trained for this mission, learning Zalaran customs, memorizing phrases in the Queen's ancient tongue, and practicing every possible diplomatic scenario. Except one. He never imagined that a single careless word could undo everything. Now he braced himself as the hatch hissed open and revealed the crystalline splendor of Cerulia Prime. The shuttle descended through layers of pale blue atmosphere, refracting sunlight into softly glowing beams. Below, the city of Cerulia Prime spread like a jewel in the sky. Towers of shimmering glass, bridges made of swirling light, and floating gardens that drifted on currents of warm air. Bioluminescent vines climbed every pillar, pulsing in time with distant music. Marlowe felt his mouth dry and his palms sweat. He straightened his suit, hoping his face didn't betray his nerves. A platform of polished obsidian received the Aurora Dawn. Alien guards in cobalt-hued armor bowed their elongated heads, weapons sheathed at their sides. Their eyes glowed like sapphires, unreadable and serene. Marlowe swallowed and stepped down, flanked by Captain Aisha Rahim and Dr. Layla Chen, the mission's lead xenolinguist. Aisha's steady presence gave him confidence. Layla held a small datapad, ready to assist with any cultural translation. As they advanced up a grand staircase, crystalline pillars extended upward like the ribs of a great beast. Soft music floated through the air. An otherworldly melody played on instruments that seemed grown rather than built. Courtiers in flowing robes of indigo and silver greeted them with gentle nods. Each face was painted with luminescent patterns, shifting slowly like living tattoos. Marlowe tried to take it all in. The sacred architecture, the alien fashion, the ritual precision. At the top of the stairs stood a dais of pale marble. Behind it, the throne of deep waters awaited, an elegant chair carved from a single shard of crystal, glowing faintly from within. Queen Zalara Thrin sat upon it, her skin a perfect shade of cerulean, eyes wide and curious. Her hair cascaded like liquid moonlight, held in place by a crown of woven starlight. Even at rest, she radiated authority. Marlowe bowed deeply. Your Majesty, I am Ambassador Marlowe Hayes of the United Earth Coalition. It is the deepest honor to stand before you on this day. The Queen's voice rang clear and melodic, echoing in the hushed hall. Ambassador Hayes of Earth, welcome to Cerulia Prime. We have watched your world's progress with interest and respect. Aisha and Layla joined the bow. Marlowe raised his head, consciously uncurling his fingers so they did not point at the Queen, an offense in Zalaran etiquette. He offered a small gift, a crystalline sphere containing swirling holograms of Earth's landscapes, from the blue oceans to the green forests. The Queen regarded it with fascination. Such beauty, she said softly, touching the sphere with a slender finger. Your world is alive in ways we have dreamed. Relief washed over Marlowe. Perhaps his preparations had paid off. He opened his mouth to continue, but then his nerves tripped him. He meant to say something respectful, perhaps a formal phrase in the Zalaran language. Instead, the words tumbled out before he could stop them. It is an honor, Your Majesty, my Queen of Smurfdom. Time froze. The court went silent. Even the soft music above them halted in mid-note. The luminescent tattoos on the courtiers' faces dimmed. Marlowe's eyes widened. He realized immediately that his slip was not just awkward, it was a grave insult. Smurfs were mythic creatures in Zalaran folklore, tricksters who broke ancient pacts and spread chaos among the stars. To call the Queen a Smurf was to accuse her of betrayal and deceit. Marlowe's throat worked as he tried to apologize, but his words faltered. I meant... Queen Zalara rose from her throne, the crystalline chair humming with power. Her hair floated as if underwater. She held up a hand and the guards straightened, weapons raised in alert. Marlowe felt Captain Rahim grip his arm, steadying him. Ambassador Hayes, the Queen said, voice cold as ice. You have invoked the name of the Smurfs upon me. That name carries a weight of betrayal and broken oaths. You have insulted not only me but the honor of Cerulia Prime. Marlowe swallowed, remembering every lesson from Layla's classes on Zelleran's speech. Remain humble, speak truthfully, and show genuine contrition. He bowed again, lower this time. Your Majesty, I beg your forgiveness. I speak only truth in my honor and respect for you and your people. My words were careless and unworthy. Layla stepped forward, tapping her data pad. Instantly, a holographic translation hovered in the air, the literal meaning of Marlowe's phrase and its unintended implication. The courtiers read with widening eyes. Some murmured, others glared. The Queen's expression remained unreadable. For a long moment, she studied Marlowe in silence. His heart pounded. He met her gaze, hoping she saw sincerity. At last, she spoke. Such an insult demands a reckoning, she declared. You have sullied this sacred hall with false words. The council will decide your fate. A murmur rose through the courtiers. Captain Rahim placed a hand on Marlowe's shoulder. Stay calm, she whispered. We will find a way. Marlowe nodded, though his knees shook. He looked to Layla, who gave him a small, resolute nod back. The xenolinguist's eyes said it all. They would race against time to undo this mistake, or Marlowe would face the gravest consequence an alien court could impose. Outside, the twin sons of Cerulia Prime began their descent toward the horizon, casting long blue shadows across the marble floor. And so the ambassador's dream of peace hung by a thread. His fate, and perhaps the fate of human-alien relations, balanced on the edge of a single, blundered word. Ambassador Marlowe Hayes felt his heart pound as the crystal doors at the rear of the grand hall slid open. Two stern-faced counselors entered, their robes of silver and blue trailing behind them like comets. They carried with them a scroll sealed, in deep indigo wax marked by the emblem of the High Council, 3 interlocking waves. Marlowe's palms were slick against his sides, but he stood as tall as he could, determined not to betray his fear. Queen Zalara Thrin remained on her crystalline throne, her gaze fixed on the scroll. Marlowe noted how her flawless blue skin shimmered under the hall's soft glow. For a moment, the amphitheater of the court was silent, except for the gentle hum of the palace itself, a living structure that breathed in time with its queen. Even the distant music from the floating gardens had ceased, as if the world held its breath. Counselor Velkar, the elder of the two, broke the stillness. His sapphire eyes narrowed and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. By the decree of the High Council, Ambassador Hayes is found guilty of insulting the crown and the honor of Cerulia Prime. The penalty for such an offense is death at sunrise, no less. He broke the seal and unrolled the scroll. However, he continued, in deference to the desire for peace between our worlds, the Queen offers a chance for atonement. Marlowe swallowed hard. He had memorized every detail of Zelleran law, but somehow he had missed this clause. The Queen's offer flickered like a candle in his mind, giving him a spark of hope. He dared to glance at Layla Chen, who stood beside Captain Aisha Rahim. Layla's face was tense, but her eyes betrayed relief. There may yet be time, she mouthed silently. Velkar's voice echoed once more through the marble expanse. To prove the sincerity of Earth's respect, humanity must present the orb of true respect by dawn's first light. This ancient artifact lies hidden deep within the archive vaults beneath Cerulia Prime. If Earth fails to deliver, the sentence stands. He bowed stiffly and stepped back, his robes whispering across the floor. A murmur rose among the courtiers. Some whispered in hushed tones, others shook their heads in dismay. Marlowe cleared his throat, fighting to keep his voice steady. Your Majesty, High Counselors, I accept this trial. I will find the orb and bring it to you before dawn. His words echoed louder than he expected, and even he felt a surge of courage. Queen Zalara stood, her crown of starlight catching the light. She drifted from behind the throne, her robes floating like water. She approached Marlowe, her eyes locked, onto his. He bowed again, his head barely above the polished obsidian floor. The court fell silent once more. every gaze upon them. "Ambassador Hayes," Zalara said softly, but with unmistakable strength, "this quest is not meant to humiliate Earth. It is your world's choice to honor the bonds of peace and show that your intentions are true." She lifted a hand and the scroll glowed briefly. "You have 10 hours. Fail, and you will learn the true meaning of the Smurf's curse." Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, though her eyes remained unreadable. Captain Rahim stepped forward, offering Marlowe a firm nod. "We leave at once," she declared. Her voice rang with authority that matched the Queen's. Layla began consulting her datapad, fingers flying across the hollow keys. The archive vaults are structured in 7 levels. The orb is rumored to rest on the lowest tier, in a chamber sealed by ancient runes. "We will need both speed and precision." Marlowe straightened, drawing breath. "Then let us waste no time." He turned to leave, but paused as the Queen's voice drifted after him. "Ambassador, know this. Should you succeed, you will not only save your life but earn the respect of all Zellerans. Should you fail, well, history will remember you only as a Smurf." Her words were gentle yet cutting, a final reminder of the stakes. Outside the throne hall, the shuttle Aurora Dawn waited in the palace courtyard, its white hull gleaming under the twin moons. Layla and Aisha led Marlowe through winding corridors, lit by bioluminescent panels, the walls pulsing like living tissue. Every step echoed in Marlowe's ears as if time itself were counting down. In the shuttle's brief silence, Layla laid out her plan. "First, we must deactivate the glyph lock on the vault entrance. There are 3 runic seals, each requiring a precise tonal frequency to open. I have recorded the frequencies, but we'll need to tune the shuttle's sonar emitter to match them. It will take time to calibrate." She pointed at a holographic display that rose from her datapad, showing complex reverberation patterns. Captain Rahim checked the shuttle's systems. "We can make the trip to the vault entrance in under an hour. That gives you 9 hours to penetrate the vault, recover the orb, and return. It's a tight window, but we can do it." Marlowe nodded, watching the pale blue sky of Cerulean Prime through the open hatch. The floating gardens drifted above, and distant towers glinted like stars. "For the sake of peace," he said quietly, "and to prove that humanity can learn from its mistakes." Layla tapped her pad, sending the calibration data to the shuttle's emitter. A soft hum filled the cabin as the emitter powered up. Its console lights blinked in rhythm with the pulsing vines outside, as though the palace itself were synchronizing with their mission. As the shuttle lifted, Marlowe took one last look back at the palace. Queen Zalara's figure remained on the dais, small through the haze of the courtyard lights, yet monumental in his memory. He felt a mixture of dread and determination. Failure would mean his death, and the collapse of fragile human Zelleran relations. Success, however, promised not only his own survival but a legacy of goodwill between worlds. The engines roared to life, and the Aurora Dawn ascended, heading toward the hidden entrance of the archive vaults. Inside that vast underground labyrinth lay the Orb of True Respect, an artifact of light and hope. Its recovery would require more than courage. It would demand humility, teamwork, and an unwavering belief that even the gravest errors could be repaired. Below them, the palace lights dimmed as the shuttle vanished into the twilight sky. The seconds ticked away toward dawn, and somewhere, deep beneath the surface of Cerulean Prime, hidden behind layers of stone and crystal, the orb waited, silent, watchful, and ready to pass judgment on the worthiness of humankind. The Aurora Dawn slipped through the sky like a silent arrow. Ambassador Marlowe Hayes peered out the viewport, watching Cerulean Prime's floating gardens drift above them. Below, the ancient entrance to the archive vaults yawned like a dark wound in the rock. No lights marked its location. Only Layla's datapad projected a faint holographic marker, a circle of runes etched into the stone. Captain Aisha Rahim guided the shuttle down. "We're on target," she said. Outside, Marlowe and Layla strapped themselves into the rear hatch. The ship's cargo bay doubled as an airlock. Once sealed, they could exit in their environmental suits. Marlowe checked his gear. A compact laser cutter, a translation implant set to Zelleran, and a small pack with supplies, water gel, nutrient bars, and emergency flares. He glanced at Layla, who tapped her pad. The glyph lock has 3 seals, she reminded him. We must hit each tone in order, or the vault door stays shut. Layla's device hummed with calibration data. She adjusted a dial. Ready when you are. Aisha opened the outer hatch. A blast of cool air hit them. Beyond lay a sheer drop of 50 meters to the vault entrance below. A suspended walkway hung on cables of living fiber. It swayed slightly in the wind. The trio stepped onto the platform, and Aisha sealed the hatch behind them. Marlowe felt the cables vibrate under his boots. He gripped the rail and looked down. Not exactly a welcoming committee, he muttered. Layla pointed at a console by the door. 3 circular slots set in crystal. Each slot had a rune glowing faint blue. That's our glyph lock, she said. We send the sonic frequencies through this emitter, then the door should unlock. Aisha set up the emitter on a nearby pedestal. She connected it to the shuttle's power line. Lights flickered in time with Layla's humming device. Calibrating. Aisha's voice softened as the machine counted down. 3, 2, 1. A low pulse sounded. The first rune blazed bright. The door shuddered but did not move. Layla frowned. The frequency is too low. Increase by 10%. Aisha adjusted the emitter. They tried again. This time the rune pulsed, and the second rune glowed, but the third remained dim. Too fast, Marlowe said. He pointed to Layla's readout. Dial back by 5%. Layla nodded, made the change, and Aisha triggered the pulse. All 3 runes flared in unison. The vault door ground open, revealing a spiraling staircase carved of onyx. The air was cool and still. Marlowe switched on his helmet light. It formed a cone of white that cut through the darkness. Stay close, Aisha whispered. They began their descent. Stone walls bore reliefs of Zelleran history. The first queen uniting the planet. Wars fought under twin suns. Pacts sealed with other worlds. Marlowe studied them, but Layla kept pace, eyes on the data pad. At the bottom, the corridor, split into 3 paths, each marked by a different rune. Layla consulted her map. The left path goes to the Library of Records. The center path is a dead end. We need the right path. It leads to the artifact chamber. They moved right. The hall curved, narrowing as they went. The air grew colder. Tiny crystals sparkled in the walls, casting faint blue glimmers. After 100 meters, they came to another door, this one smaller but more ornate. Strange symbols danced across its surface as if alive. Layla stepped forward. This is the rune seal. It won't open to brute force. We need to speak the Yai, password in Zelleran. She checked her translation implant. Password is truth and honor. Marlowe swallowed. He had practiced the pronunciation. With shaking lips, he spoke. Kaltera Shimorin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the runes on the door faded, and the surface rippled like water. A section slid aside, revealing a chamber lit by a soft glow. Inside, on a pedestal of carved crystal, rested the orb of true respect. It lay encased in a transparent shell, hovering slightly above its stand. Marlowe's heart leaped. He took a step forward, but Aisha held up a hand. Wait, she commanded softly. There might be more security. Layla nodded. Yes, pressure sensors in the floor. If we just grab it, alarms will trigger. Marlowe glanced around. Smooth, tiles covered the entire chamber. He looked at the pedestal. It sat on a single tile, slightly different in color. Only the pedestal tile is safe, he said. We need to stay on it. How do we get the orb without stepping off? Aisha asked. Layla tapped her datapad. The pedestal has a magnetic clamp. We can break the clamp with the laser cutter, then use the shuttle's zero-gravity module to lift the orb without touching the floor. Marlowe took the laser cutter. He knelt on the pedestal tile, careful not to slip. The tool's beam cut through. The clamps in seconds, sparks flew and the clamps fell away. The orb drifted free. Aisha activated the zero-gravity module on her backpack. She pointed its nozzle at the orb and pressed a button. The orb lifted smoothly, hovering in front of her. Its surface shifted with inner light, casting rainbow hues on the walls. Marlowe felt a surge of triumph. Too soon. A low rumble echoed through the chamber. The walls vibrated. Layla's eyes widened. "We triggered something. The door is closing." Sure enough, the entrance had begun to seal. The outer ring of the door slid toward the center. If it closed, they'd be trapped. Aisha gripped the orb and turned toward the door, but the closing ring moved faster. "We need to hold it," she shouted. Marlowe and Layla spread out at the ring's edges, pressing their palms against the cool crystal. Crystal dust crumbled under their hands. The door slowed for a moment, but then began to move faster again. Marlowe's arms shook from the pressure. Layla cried out, "Use the emitter's power. Reverse the pulse." Marlowe scrambled back to the glyph emitter near the pedestal. Sparks flew from broken parts. He yanked a cable loose and jammed it into a terminal on the door mechanism. He flipped switches. The glyph emitter roared to life. A pulse of energy shot through the corridor. The door slid back with a screech. Aisha and Layla caught their breath. As the ring stopped at the open position, Marlowe rejoined them, panting. Aisha held the orb carefully. "Well done," she said, voice steady. "Let's go." They retraced their steps, moving quickly but carefully. Behind them, the vault's door sealed once more, as if the chamber itself had finished its task. Back on the suspended walkway, the Aurora Dawn awaited. Layla held the orb in a padded case. Marlowe watched her, pride and relief mixing in his chest. Below them, Cerulean Prime's twin moons began to set. The first light of dawn crept across the sky. Captain Rahim nodded. "To the palace," she said, "before the suns rise any further." As the shuttle lifted, Marlowe glanced once more at the dark entrance of the vaults, now closed and silent. He knew this was only half the journey. The true test would come when the orb met Queen Zalara's eyes, but for now they had the orb of true respect, and they still had time. The Aurora Dawn shuddered gently as it descended toward the palace courtyard. Ambassador Marlowe Hayes sat strapped in his seat, the orb of true respect secured in a padded case on the seat beside him. The first pale light of Cerulean Prime's twin suns crept over the horizon, painting the crystalline towers in soft blues and silvers. Marlowe could feel his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment of truth. Would Queen Zalara accept the orb and spare his life? Or would he face the final decree of execution? Captain Aisha Rahim guided the shuttle down with precision. "Touchdown in 30 seconds, she announced calmly. Layla Chen checked her datapad one last time, ensuring the translation implant was ready and that the ceremonial wording was flawless. The palace guards, clad in polished cobalt armor, stood at attention around the marble landing pad. Their sapphire eyes reflected curiosity and suspicion. Marlowe took a steadying breath, wiped a bead of sweat from his brow and nodded to Aisha. As the hatch opened, the cold morning air rushed in. Marlowe stood, holding the orb case firmly in both hands. The courtyard was silent except for the distant hum of palace life waking up. Bioluminescent vines on nearby pillars pulsed softly, as if sensing the tension in the air. The guards flanked him on either side as he walked toward the great doors of the throne hall. Each step echoed on the polished stone, marking time until dawn's light would fully embrace the city. Inside the hall, the courtiers had gathered again. Their luminescent tattoos glowed softly, casting dancing patterns on the walls. Queen Zalara Thrin stood at the dais, framed by the crystalline throne. She wore a simple gown of woven starlight, her crown held high. Though the expression on her face was calm, Marlowe sensed the weight of her decision pressing down on him. He and his entourage stopped several meters before the dais, leaving space for ritual protocol. Layla stepped forward first, her voice clear in basic English with Zalaran inflections. Your Majesty, Ambassador Hayes of Earth presents the Orb of True Respect as decreed by the High Council. Captain Rahim released the orb case, and Marlowe lifted the transparent shell gently. The orb hovered in its case, shimmering with inner light. He lowered himself into a full bow and held the orb aloft, cradled in both hands like the most precious offering imaginable. A hush fell over the hall. Marlowe's palms were slick, but he held the orb steady. The Queen watched without blinking. Marlowe switched on the orb's projection feature with a hidden switch in its base. Instantly, the chamber filled with a soft glow. Holographic images of Earth appeared. Children planting trees, volunteers building shelters after a storm, scientists sharing vaccines, diplomats extending hands in peace. Scenes of human compassion and courage played in silent loops, each lasting only a few heartbeats before fading into the next. The effect was profound. Gasps rippled through the courtiers. Even the palace walls seemed to glow warmer with the orb's light. Marlowe felt his breathing steady as he watched the Queen's eyes widen. His voice, amplified by Layla's translation implant, carried across the hall. These images show the heart of humanity, our respect for life, our honor in keeping our word, and our hope for friendship with Zalara Prime. For a moment, the chamber was illuminated only by the orb's soft radiance. Then Queen Zalara raised her hand. The holograms faded, and the orb's light dimmed to its natural glow. Marlowe rose slowly, the case once again in his hands. He dared to look up, meeting the Queen's steady gaze. She took a silent step forward. Ambassador Hayes, she said, her voice low but clear. You have shown us something unexpected. Not the clumsy words of a human diplomat, but the true spirit of your people. Her gaze drifted to the orb. The orb of true respect tests not only intent but the willingness to learn. You have passed this trial. A collective exhale swept through the courtiers. Marlowe felt his shoulders relax ever so slightly, the tension ebbing. Yet he did not celebrate. His eyes remained fixed on the Queen. He bowed again deeply. Your Majesty, I thank you. On behalf of Earth, I offer this gift as a symbol of our renewed pledge. To honor our promises, to learn from our mistakes, and to stand as your friends among the stars. Queen Zalara extended her free hand. Light flickered in her palm, and the orb floated from Marlowe's case into hers. As she held it, the orb emitted a final warm pulse, sending ripples of soft light through the court. She turned fully to face Marlowe. Let this moment mark a new era. Ambassadors of Earth, you are free and more than free. You are honored guests of Cerulean Prime. Marlowe exhaled, relief flooding through him. Captain Rahim and Layla both bowed deeply, their expressions bright despite the early hour. The guards lowered their weapons and the courtiers began to whisper in excited tones. A gentle melody returned, the floating garden musicians resuming their song above. Outside, the twin suns rose fully, bathing Cerulean Prime in radiant light. The palace walls sparkled like spun glass. Ambassador Hayes looked up at the sky, feeling the warmth from both suns on his face. In that moment, he knew that a single mistake had nearly cost everything. Yet through humility and teamwork, they had turned insult into opportunity. As the music swelled, Queen Zalara offered Marlowe her hand. He accepted it, feeling the cool grace of her gesture. Together, they walked down the dais steps, sealing the dawn of a new friendship between worlds. Cerulean Prime and Earth, once divided by misunderstanding, now stood united in mutual respect, and all because a human ambassador dared to correct his error and reveal the true heart of his people. The halls of the throne temple of Cerulean Prime bustled with life as dawn's full light flooded through crystalline windows. Courtiers drifted in small groups, their glowing tattoos shifting with every movement. Musicians in the floating gardens above tuned their instruments, preparing a celebration for the human delegation. Ambassador Marlowe Hayes, Captain Isha Rahim, and Dr. Layla Chen stood together just outside the main chamber, taking in the scene. Marlowe felt a deep sense of relief and pride. Yesterday's mistake and the race through the vaults now belonged to history. Today marked a new beginning. He adjusted his suit, smoothing a wrinkle near his shoulder. Beside him, Layla reviewed her data pad, checking the ceremony schedule, and Aisha consulted her captain's log. At the head of the hall, Queen Zalara Thrin awaited. She stood beneath a grand arch of woven starlight vines, her crown of moonlight shining even in daylight. Her presence was calm and assured, the very image of grace and power. She nodded to the human trio when she saw them, and her small smile warmed Marlowe's heart. Ambassador Hayes, Captain Rahim, Dr. Chen, she greeted in clear, resonant tones. Welcome to the celebration of new bonds. Today we honor your courage, your honesty, and your spirit of friendship. Marlowe bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, thank you for your mercy, your wisdom, and this gift of unity. He gestured to Aisha and Layla. Without them, I would not stand here today. The Queen inclined her head to each in turn. Your team's strength in adversity brings honor to Earth. We would celebrate together now. She raised her hand, and soft chimes echoed as a set of doors slid open to reveal a vast courtyard. Outside, the celebration was already in motion. Tens of thousands of Zellerans gathered in spirals of floating terraces. Holographic ribbons of light arched overhead, forming constellations of both Earth stars and cerulean lights. Flowers that glowed with inner fire bloomed on every ledge, and fountains of liquid crystal sang as they leapt from pillar to pillar. Marlowe, Aisha, and Layla followed Queen Zalara down the dais steps and into the courtyard. The crowd hushed as they entered, then burst into applause and cheers. Though the applause was gentle, far quieter than Earth's boisterous clapping, it carried a deep sincerity. Marlowe felt tears prick at his eyes. He straightened his back, determined to show his gratitude. On a central platform, a long table, curved in a half-moon shape. It held gifts from Earth, sculpted statuettes of iconic monuments, samples of Earth's rarest minerals, jars of deep blue ocean water, and vials of medical serum that had eradicated diseases. Each gift was labeled in basic English and Zalaran script. Queen Zalara guided the humans to the table. Present your gifts, she said. Let us share our worlds. Marlowe stepped forward and laid down a polished wooden box. He opened it to reveal a beautifully carved dove of olive wood. On Earth, the dove is a symbol of peace, he explained. We send this as our promise. We come in friendship, not conquest. The Queen's lips curved in appreciation. She lifted the dove and turned it so sunlight passed through it, casting wooden bird shapes on the crystal floor. A noble symbol, she said. Your gift will stand in our Hall of Unity. Captain Rahim presented next. She placed a small glass cylinder filled with glowing spores. These are bioluminescent algae from Earth's deep seas. They light up our oceans on dark nights, guiding lost ships to safety. We hope they will light your floating gardens. Layla then stepped forward, offering a slender tube containing a vaccine developed on Earth that cured a rare Zelleran plague from centuries past. This medicine may help protect your people from future outbreaks. It stands for our shared knowledge and compassion. The Queen accepted each gift with a small bow. At the last gift, she placed both hands on her chest and addressed the crowd. Today we bind our worlds not only in words but in deeds. These gestures honor us all. Aisha whispered to Marlowe. The crowd loves it. He nodded, heart full. Music began. A gentle, rhythmic melody played on instruments shaped like crystalline shells. Dancers in flowing robes of light began to move in unison, their steps echoing the slow, graceful waves of Cerulea's sea. The humans watched in awe as the dance told a story of two worlds coming together. When the performance ended, the Queen raised her voice above the applause. Let all ceremonies be complete, she declared. Humans and Zellerans, step forward and share the feast of new dawn. Tables set with sparkling dishes lined the terraces, foods of many colors, fruits that glowed like embers, bread infused with lunar herbs, savory pastries of crystallized grains, beckoned. Marlowe hesitated, unsure how to eat the unfamiliar delicacies. Aisha smiled and began to taste the glowing fruit. Its sweet, cooling juice made her eyes widen. Layla followed, and soon Marlowe felt a smile spread across his face as he bit into a soft pastry that melted on his tongue. They dined under the sky where Earth's pale orb still hovered above. Cerullia's twin suns, a symbol of their far-off world now linked to this one. Laughter mingled with conversation as humans and Zalarans exchanged stories. Marlowe found himself seated beside a court historian who was keen to learn about Earth's ancient myths. Aisha discussed starship engineering with naval officers who marveled at human designs. Layla lectured on xenolinguistics to scholars who scribbled notes on floating tablets. As the hours passed, Marlowe rose to address the gathering. He cleared his throat and the music softened. Citizens of Cerullia Prime, he began in basic English, speaking slowly so that translators could relay his words in Zalaran. You have shown us great kindness, patience, and wisdom. We came to your world as strangers and nearly paid the price for one careless word, yet you chose mercy, gave us a chance, and now we stand together as friends. He paused, letting his words settle. The crowd fell silent, their glowing patterns dimming in respectful attention. On behalf of Earth, I offer not just gifts, but our hands in friendship. May the bond we forge today guide both our worlds into a future of peace and mutual respect. The Queen rose beside him. Draped in robes that caught every ray of dawn, she lifted her hand, and a wave of silvery light spread across the courtyard. So it shall be, she said. Let this partnership shine like our twin suns, bright, warm, and enduring. A cheer rose that filled the sky. Marlowe felt tears of joy blur his vision. He reached out to shake the Queen's hand once more, and she accepted it with a firm grace. Together they stood, hand in hand, symbolizing the alliance between Earth and Cerullia Prime. When the celebration finally drew to a close, the human delegation prepared to depart. The Aurora Dawn waited on the landing pad, now bathed in morning light. Marlowe paused at the hatch, looking back at the palace one last time. The floating gardens drifted lazily in the air, and beams of rainbow light arced between towers. He felt a swell of pride and hope. Beside him, Aisha and Layla gathered their gear. Think we'll be invited back? Marlowe asked with a grin. Layla smiled. I think we just earned permanent embassy status. Marlowe laughed. No more Smurf. Jokes, I promise. As the shuttle lifted off, Marlowe pressed his forehead against the viewport. Below him, Cerullia Prime became a jewel in the sky, its beauty mirrored by the genuine friendship they had forged. In his heart, he knew this was just the beginning. Human and Zalaran scientists would collaborate, artists would share their visions, and perhaps one day they would travel together to new worlds. For now, the two planets drifted in harmony under the watchful gaze of the twin suns, and the pale blue orb that was Earth. And somewhere, in the silent depths of space, the spirit of respect and friendship glowed brighter than any star.